disruptors, and welcome to another empowering episode of Mindset Master Moments with me, your host, Dr. Alisa Whyte. And today we are diving into the science of self-empowerment. My guest is a researcher and an editor who has co-authored an incredible book called Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment, alongside renowned mind expert Ravinder Taylor. This book is making waves. It is so unique. It has a unique blend of neuroscience and practical strategies. And you all know at Mindset Mastery Moments, we love to break down the science. And today's expert, she has done the work to support us on a journey. She's ready to help us with rewiring our brains and help us to break free from self-limiting beliefs and get into a space where we're maximizing our potential. Today, joining me is again Ravinder Taylor, a leading mind science researcher who is passionate about making complex brain science accessible and practical. She is my people. Except she has done way more research than I have done. We're going to explore the truth behind self-help myths and the science of optimism, and how you can take control of your mind to create the life you truly desire. Ravinder, again, welcome again to Mindset Mastery Moments. We're so happy to dive into your brain and all the things you can do as much as we can get in an hour, and then have our guests continue to journey with you. Welcome again.
Hello, Dr. Whyte. Thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor and a pleasure. I look forward to a great conversation.
Absolutely. Ravinder, let's start with the foundation. And what really is mind training all about? But hold on. The listeners are really not going to be too happy with me. They're going to want to know who you are, who you're from, where you're from, and why did you even get into this space in the first place?
My background was in hard science. My degree is in microbiology. I was working in a path lab. I was very, very science-based. I was interested in the power of the mind, but just in the background, some questions about why we do what we do, but not seriously at all. But I was working in the path lab, and one day all of these flyers appeared around the hospital. They were talking about a hypnotherapist who was coming to do a presentation. Up until that point, I had put hypnosis in that woo-woo category. It's entertainment. It's, getting people on stage to make idiots out of themselves. I didn't take it seriously at all. But there were about 70 people who worked in my lab at that time, and most of us attended this presentation. As I said, it had been advertised to all the doctors, all the nurses. So to me, it had a bit of a quasi-endorsement element to it.
Yeah.
We get to the auditorium. The auditorium was really large. It was packed. There were people sitting on the steps. Coincidentally, the three people that the lecturer brought up to demonstrate the hypnosis techniques all happened to come from my lab. Wow. So I knew for a fact that these were not shills. This was not an act. A colleague of mine, Dawn, I think she was told to forget the number 6. And so she would count up and down from 1 to 10 and back down again and just totally miss the number 6. Yeah. Martin had a pin stuck in his arm and he didn't feel anything at all. And he was very proud, to display this pin the following day in the lab. So I knew that, there was definitely something to this process. But what really fascinated me was a story that the lecturer shared. And there was this woman who had come to see him. She had a pain in her arm. She'd had the pain in her arm, I believe, about a decade. She had been to see all the doctors, all the specialists, all the experts, had all the tests done, couldn't find a solution. So as a last resort, she had come to this hypnotherapist who was an anesthesiologist during the day. I think he did hypnotherapy on the side. Under hypnosis, he did some regression work with her and went back to the event that had triggered this particular problem that she was having.
Yes.
Under hypnosis, she remembered a traumatic event, an emotional traumatic event. It wasn't something that she had really forgotten about. She could recall it, but she had dismissed it. She had packed it away, packed the emotions away, so to speak. The following day, she called the hypnotherapist up to say that the pain had gone, and the pain had actually gone immediately after the session. She just didn't believe it. So it was this very idea of emotional baggage that we carry around with us from the past that can influence our present. And so that was where my interest began. I went on to have hypnotherapy myself, and I got to experience some really cool techniques. So I experienced hypnotic drawing, hypnotic writing, fascinating process.
Wow.
Under hypnosis, I was told to draw a picture that depicted, whatever this triggering event was. And so in that particular session, I drew the picture, and at the end of it, he said, open your eyes. I opened my eyes, and I looked down, and all I could see were these squiggles on the page. I didn't understand anything. Right. The following week, I went back for a next session, and under hypnosis, he told me to open my eyes, look at the picture, and tell him what it meant. And when I saw the picture, I knew exactly. In my school, when I was around 8, 9 years of age, we had a swimming pool. This wasn't official swimming classes, but as a class, we would go out to the pool in the summer. It was an above ground pool, so the teachers walked around the outside of it. At one point, I'm in the pool, and I have no idea why, but my feet could not find purchase on the ground. Mm-hmm. They were just slipping, and so my head was underwater, and I couldn't stand up. A teacher saw the difficulty I was in, because I was close to the edge. She literally reached in, picked me up by my swimming hat, clear of the water. I did not tell anybody about this. I didn't even say anything to the teacher about how afraid I was. Oh. I just locked it all away. Mm-hmm. And so in this hypnosis session, this picture was the pattern my feet were making on the ground of the swimming pool. As they were unable to find patches. They were just slip sliding around. I found the process interesting. I found the whole concept fascinating. I went on to do a 3-year course in hypnosis and psychotherapy, and that was where it started. I haven't stopped learning or studying since.
Wow, fascinating. I myself, full disclosure, some people are aware of it, but I did study NLP and hypnotherapy enough to support myself, because what had happened, Ravinder, was I had a lot of menstrual pain growing up, and I suffered migraines. It turns out, I had an autoimmune disease so long I didn't know. So it was not if I was in pain, it was what level of pain I was in. And so over time, I'd had to have a lot of surgeries and things just to be better. And I just needed something. And so I started incidentally. I didn't realize I was technically hypnotizing myself. I knew how to literally allow myself to go to a whole different place from where I was and just sort of check out. And then I started to do recordings that would guide me through healing. The first time I did that is I had this major surgery, and I had a big cut in my stomach. I couldn't even get up out of the bed without help or something. But I remember just doing that hypnotherapy audio, and literally the doctor said I healed faster. It's like, what have you been doing? Have you been walking? And I said, well, I've been listening to this tape, and my goodness, it's like, oh, you probably were hypnotizing yourself. And I'm like, really? I don't think you can do that. It's like, yeah, you did. So I was so curious about that. And that's honestly what led me into the space of mindset, because I realized that everything, it's like, this is my mind, it's a central unit that I can literally change my reality at any given time. This is the simplest way I could say it. And that's why I went to study it. And so the only person I've hypnotized far is myself. And unfortunate for me so far, I have not had someone hypnotize me. So there's still so much for me. But what I'm saying is I can co-sign what you're saying about what you've experienced and then what you've learned. So now let's get into what is mind training really all about.
In a nutshell, mind training is the art of tweaking formerly subconscious processes in order to eliminate self-destructive behaviors, enhance health and vitality, supercharge success potential. Most people think that, we are just the way we are, the way we're born. This is how God made us. They think it's down to genes and nurture, and there's nothing that you can do about it. What I outline in mind training, you don't have to, get a degree in neuroscience to understand it. I didn't want to do anything like that. I wanted to keep this very simple, very practical. So the analogy that I use, how when I was younger, if you got a car, the engine was all open and exposed and you could see all the different components. Today, car engines come with that big black cover over them, and they have these ports in order to access, well, this is where you change your oil, this is where you can jumpstart your car. You don't actually touch the battery, they've just got, they've got connections all set for you. So mind training to me is about finding those easy points where we can go in and we can make changes. What we discover is our beliefs play such a huge role in everything. In your instance, you having all of these pains, all of these surgeries, there's going to be two elements to the work that you did. One is the more tense you are, the more pain you're going to feel. The more you anticipate pain, the more pain that you're going to feel. And then the other side of it is accessing the mind's own healing abilities. In order to get yourself into a state, the mind is incredible. You look at the placebo response and you see quite how amazing it is and how much belief can influence it. So you look at the placebo effect, and there are certain variations, like a capsule is more powerful than a pill, an injection is more powerful than the capsule, surgery is more powerful still. But what I also found really fascinating was when you look at the global effects or the global kinds of placebo responses you can get. So, for example, in Germany, the placebo response for hypertensive drugs is low. But when it comes to gastric ulcers, the placebo response is particularly low in Venezuela. It's higher in Europe. It's highest in Germany. So what is it about our enculturation, our surroundings? We take in so much information all the time, and we don't realize the kind of effects it has.
Yes. We really do. That's so powerful. Well said. So when you thought about writing a book, and I love the subtitle that is the science of self-empowerment. Can you define what self-empowerment is from a scientific perspective, and really how do we go beyond just motivation and actually rewiring our thinking?
Again, there's two parts of that. I wanted to keep everything very science-based.
Yeah.
I have my own spiritual bent. I have, things that I like. But I wanted the book to be very, very solid. So it is. All the tools, all the techniques in there are all science-based. They draw on science from, psychologists, research around the world. I just found, I looked at all of these different papers. I actually draw on about 200 different scientific studies in order to come up with the tools and tips that we have in mind training. So I wanted it very science-based, but the self-empowerment part of it was really important to me. I've worked in the self-help, self-improvement arena for quite some time. And I'm aware how oftentimes a kernel of truth can then be expanded so far that it's not real. They're not actually giving real answers. I wanted to provide the reader with all of the information. So I don't just tell them the results of a particular scientific study. I will explain briefly, simply, what they did and how they got the results that they did, because in that way the reader is empowered to take it and actually understand it and make it personal for them. It isn't just, a hard recipe book where you have to follow all the steps one by one, add the sugar, add the flour. It's not like that at all. This is like a buffet of stuff, and you can go choose what it is, and you can actually make up your own recipes as well with
just ingredients in there as well.
Information that I provide. I've encountered instances where people are following a particular technique. So this is really big, like with the law of attraction. Again, there is a kernel of truth. What you expect to see, you'll see more of. So if you've decided to buy a new car for yourself and you've done your research and you've decided the model of car that you want, all of a sudden you're going to see that car everywhere out on the street.
Yes. Why does that happen? Of course.
What you expect, it's because you're paying attention to it. They were always there.
They were always there.
You just weren't paying attention to it before. And with the law of attraction, oftentimes the teachers of that will say things like, well, you didn't believe enough. Or you have to allow the divine timing for this. You have all of these excuses for why it doesn't work without a scientific basis. You can say you didn't believe enough. Why didn't you believe enough? What other things are going on in your subconscious mind to prevent you from believing? What contradictory beliefs do you have that can get in your way? So I wanted this to be a book about self-empowerment. I wanted to give the reader all the information and all the tools.
What stands out to me is why you use the word self-empowerment versus self-improvement.
Because it's internal power, it's bringing out your own. I'm not into, we're broken, we need to be fixed. We all have opportunities. Life is a journey. As you get older, you learn that everyone makes mistakes. There isn't room to judge other people because I've made plenty of mistakes of my own. I didn't want to come from a perspective of we're broken. I wanted to come from, we have this amazing tool between our ear, the brain, our beliefs. We have all of that. How do we maximize that? How do we get out of our own way? How do we eliminate those self-destructive behaviors? How do we encourage healing in ourselves? How can we just become better people, whatever that may be?
Exactly.
Some people, that is, success in business and career. For other people, they just want to have, the perfect family relationship, or as perfect as you can get. We all, I don't know if you have children. I've got 2 boys.
I do.
I wanted to be the best mother I could be.
Absolutely.
I want to be the best wife that I can be. I want to be the best friend that I can be. These are all different areas that we can excel in, but our upbringing, our experiences, there are lots of things that can get in the way of that. So I want to be able to say, well, I don't do very well in this particular area. Why is that? Can I go digging in my subconscious mind in order to find out why I always shout at my husband over such silly things.
Exactly. I remember going through that phase and trying to figure it out. It was all in my head. It was all part of my cycle from things that I had learned, and I hate to say it, from my traumatic experiences, because I didn't like that I did that, but I was doing it anyway. And it's like, okay, what is the deal here? And of course, not until my later years when I realized that I had a programming that was already there. And I say, people laugh with me and they say, all I have to do is simply reprogram.
You have to have the tools. You have to
to be able to do it. And that's what this book is about, listeners and viewers. Now, one of the critiques that I hear that you have about the self-help field is the use of common success stories that are more myth than fact. Can you share these examples of these myths and explain why they might actually be harmful? And this is so important for me, because I haven't had anyone on a podcast talk about this, and I know you're going to speak about it in a way that, of course, is research-based, and you have the facts to prove it, right? And I want everyone to scream in here. She's going to give us some really good things, because obviously I work in the what they call it, self-help space. Our podcast is a self-improvement category and blah, blah, blah. I, just like Ravinder, prefer self-empowerment over self-help or self-improvement, but call it what you may. What are these myths that you are willing to bust for us today?
This is actually really simple. This isn't going to be deep end science for this. Oftentimes in the self-help field, they rely on inspiration a lot. And inspiration is great. You can have an inspirational story and that can just help light that fire within you. But if the inspirational story doesn't have teeth to it, if it doesn't have the detail to it, then yeah, you're going to be inspired for a minute. You go home, you try to apply it, it's going to fall flat on its face. So my favorite example of this comes to Roger Bannister, who wrote the 4-Minute Mile. The way the story is very commonly told is people didn't believe that the 4-Minute Mile could be broken, but one day Roger Bannister believed he could, and he went out and he did it, and everyone saw that he did it. And so they now believed it was possible. And just 6 weeks later, John Landry not only broke the 4-Minute Mile, but he broke Bannister's record as well. And since then, thousands of people have done it. So all you have to do is believe.
It's believe.
That's inadequate. It is totally inadequate. I ran a marathon myself in 2018. I had not run prior to the training for this. I had not run in decades. My training actually began in 2013, and it started off really slow. There was this training routine I had for doing a 10K. My first attempt at running, I would run halfway down the street and be collapsing. And it's not a long street, it's not a minute. This particular training that I did, you begin by, you will run for 1 minute, walk for 3, run for 1, walk for 3. It had an entire timetable laid out for you. So I'd go training 3 times a week, and it would increase and increase. And the first time I did my 4 sets of 10. So I would run for 10 minutes, walk for 1, run for 10, walk for 1. The first time I did that, I was so proud of myself. I've come such a long way. Well, my training continued. And as I said, come 2018, I ran my marathon. Now, with Roger Bannister, he did not just get up one May morning and say, in 1954, I'm going to break the 4-Minute Mile, or I'm going to attempt it. No, his training actually started in 1946. He began training. Now, there's lots of other mind elements that would come into play. He's going to have a great deal of discipline to train regularly. You do have to train regularly, or you can be prone to injuries.
Absolutely.
You have to work up really slowly. It takes discipline to abstain from all of those foods that taste delicious but just pack on the pounds. It takes discipline to go to bed early so that you can get up early to train when your friends are out drinking in the pub.
That's right.
You see, so it took a lot of discipline. It took a lot of self-sacrifice. And, for some people, there can be other self-sabotaging instincts that can come into play. He dealt with all of his demons. He worked and he trained. So when these self-help gurus talk about belief, that's all you have to do. There we go. Go away and believe. That's not fair. That does a disservice to people who are trying to improve their lives, because they'll say, okay, I'll believe. And they don't have any understanding for why that belief doesn't hold, why it doesn't work for them.
You gotta put and that's the same thing about, I remember telling my speaking coach that I refused in the beginning to call myself a motivational speaker, because I felt like what you just said, it was a lot of great inspiration, but I didn't have the tools and the steps to create or recreate what success looked like for me to achieve. They're achieving massive and, inspirational results. I want that, but I'm like, okay, I feel pumped up. I can do it. And then, wow. Whoops, it's like the bottom of the cup just fell out, right? So I did not like, and I'm not saying all, but that was what I had observed about the motivational speaking space and as a speaker. But that's such a title I take on. I'm a teacher and a facilitator. It's so important because I sat in front of classrooms from pre-K all the way up to college at this point when I'm taking on my speaking career. And I'm like, there's got to be something that you learn. There's got to be something that you learn that you want to take action on. So I'm not getting up on a stage and tell you, oh, I was this and then I did this and here I am. I'm so great. Don't you love me? Come on, let's do it. I wanted people to say, if she can do it, hell yeah. And here's how. And I'm going to try this, and then I'm going to mix it up and put some stuff in there, and I'm going to get some other stuff that I got from it, and I'm going to make my formula and my roadmap to my wins and my success one bit at a time. And the big deal is that discipline. That's what separates an athlete from the rest of us. They get up and they make all the decisions with their meals, with their routine, their time, and everything to do that. So there's no fluffing this. Put your mind in the direction you want to go. The thing, though, to reverse, Ravinder, is that a lot of people will create the discipline, lack the belief. How do you find that plays out? Tell us about that. They'll create discipline. They're getting up and going every day and doing this and planning this, but they don't believe that they can. They just
discipline, willpower wears out. And so the very idea of they've got the discipline, they're doing it, but it's not working, so they quit. Willpower wears out. So there are techniques even there to make it easier. There are lots of people who want to get up early in the morning and go exercise. They can plan to do that. And then in the morning, they open their eyes and say, do I want to do it? Am I up to it today? Did I rest enough? And they're making the choice then. The real key right there is to not leave the choice making to a time where you can be vulnerable, where you can be weak. So for me, I do exactly the same thing. I do now get up early every morning and I go work out. But I've made the decision beforehand. My alarm is set and I've told myself, as soon as the alarm goes off, get out of bed. Get out of bed and start moving right away. I am not opening my eyes thinking, am I up to training right now? The decision was made. I have a pairing. Pairing that says, when this happens, I will
this
do
is what
this.
I do.
This holds in other areas too. You know, if you're going to a party and they're going to have cake, but you've decided you're not going to have cake. Well, you decide beforehand. You can say,
That's right.
they're going to have cake. This is what my response is going to be.
That's it.
I will make sure that I grab something else that is healthier so I can eat at the same time as everyone's eating cake. You find strategies, but you plan it before so that as soon as someone offers you that cake, you've got your response. It's already triggered.
Absolutely. It's funny because I started doing that as a very young child, teenager, and I did not understand what I was doing. But as I got older and I talk to different people and I hear about their pitfalls and what they struggled with, I started to figure out and learn that I had a thing. So I remember talking to my ex-husband one day, and I was just like, why do you think you messed up? Why do you think you cheated? It's like, well, it happened. And I'm like, nothing just happens. You make decisions, right? And I said, why did I cheat? And I was sitting there, I said, I know why I never cheat, and I probably won't, because I'm determined I won't. And when these certain set of circumstances present themselves, I have a path that I'm going to take. And it's an agreement that I made with myself, and I honor my agreements. And it's like a predisposition. So there were times I've missed that someone was flirting with me, and many people would be like, didn't you see he was all over you? I'm like, me? I know. So I think I already programmed my brain.
In part, you did. See, in that story, you've indicated that you have these values of this is what married life is about. This is how I am going to be a good partner. But your husband probably said, this is what I expect out of a marriage. And if I don't get that, I have to get it somewhere
else.
Exactly.
Made an agreement.
It comes down to what your choices are in the beginning. And marriage is hard work. It does take sacrifice. It's not easy peasy. But they actually say that for a successful marriage, both partners need to give 150%.
Absolutely.
And that's how
100% over there to get, you need 300% in order to get 100. The math would never match, but you got to do it.
It's not a case of give and take. You can't be keeping a tally of I've done X amount, they need to do X amount. No, there's going to be times that you're doing a whole lot more. There's going to be times that you're doing a whole lot less. You don't keep a tally. You just keep on showing up and being the perfect partner, being the best partner that you can be. You know, it's a journey.
I love that.
To do it better.
I love that you said being, not doing. And the thing I've learned in, my next chapter, I went through separation and divorce 9 years ago, almost 10. And then I call it my next chapter is what I've learned is if you have these connecting, and this is why I talk all the time about connecting with your true values, core beliefs, and knowing your sense of purpose and being assured in that. Because when you have these values and you create who you are and what you're being and doing in the world, then showing up in the relationship becomes simple, not easy. It's not a rocket science situation. That's how I say, because now who I am is how I show up. And now there's molding to bring the pair. But it's easy because now it's simple because I'm standing in a space of these are things I wouldn't do, and I can relate, I can speak on them even before time and not waste anybody's time. And then even while we're in the journey, we know what we're doing. So I seek out that energy and that partner with someone who's in that space. And then we take it from there because now we're going to take these two things and build something. You wouldn't buy half, like you wouldn't, if you have to think, I guess sometimes when I think about building homes, I think about building it traditionally from Guyana, but I never saw them buy half blocks. If the blocks were breaking, they took them back for the walls, right? You get whole blocks and you put them, and that's how the building and the walls are assembled. So that was just my thought.
In this particular area, you had an advantage. You had some programming within you that told you what it would take to be a good partner in a relationship. You had that belief already. Self-sabotage, we all have self-sabotaging beliefs in some area of our lives. Self-sabotage is normally the is a subconscious strategy to help protect you from further pain. So you can have a belief, you can have an experience where you were hurt or embarrassed. Say, for example, I had this exact example. As a child, I got embarrassed doing a public speaking thing. What had happened was it was a school event. I was about 9 or 10. I was a narrator for this production that we were putting on, but this other kid hadn't showed up, so I had to do his part as well. And his part was to take 2 coconut shells, hit them together to have the noise of horse hooves. So there I am, 9 years old, thereabouts. I've got my paper that I'm reading, I'm doing the narration for, and then I come to this pit and I have to quickly put it down and pick up these coconut shells and clap them together. And I looked clumsy, I looked awkward, or maybe everyone thought I was cute. I don't know.
They probably did.
I saw everybody laughing.
Oh.
You see, and it was only actually in the last few years, as I've been doing more and more public speaking, more and more interviews, that I remembered that situation.
Wow.
But there's lots of other ways that we can sabotage ourselves. You see, I didn't want to have that embarrassment again, so I really worked hard to avoid public speaking. I went out of my way. I mean, it was crazy how far out of my way I would get. My husband was a public speaker and I would run hide.
You're like, I'll be backstage.
But in mind training, we actually outline the different stages of development, the kinds of things that you're supposed to learn. We actually show you how we take on beliefs and how they occur at different parts of our lives. So you have the ability to look at some of the charts that we've got and then compare them to your own life. And the more you question your subconscious mind, the more it will give you the answers, the more you understand that self-sabotaging strategies are buried in the subconscious mind. And once you realize them, once that memory comes to light, it will lose its power.
Yes, absolutely.
So there are some things that can get fixed right away. You just have to learn.
Be in awareness.
Your mind learns information and where to go in order to access the information, and how to then go and change those beliefs that aren't working in your favor anymore.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, you all heard it. She said it. You guys hear me say it all the time. I just said it on a Facebook Live this morning. And here she is reinforcing it. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about that placebo effect. So fascinating. Most people think of it as a flawed type of research. And you mentioned it earlier, but you argue that it's one of the most powerful pieces of evidence for the mind's influence on our lives. Can you explain and expand what you mean by that?
In any scientific study on any new drugs or all they always control for the placebo effect. People will often say, I'm into alternative medicines and treatments too. I'll try homeopathy. I'll try herbal. I'll try homeopathic. Most things work for me, but can be people around me that say, oh, that's just placebo. It gets dismissed. And I don't think it should be dismissed.
Not at all.
It's such a powerful example
of
the power of the mind's ability to heal you. It can heal you. It can hurt you. It can help you be successful. It can sabotage you. So I think it's a mistake to dismiss the placebo response. there was some research that was done where they were looking at antidepressants. And they looked across everything, and what they found, this was really controversial research, but what they found was most of the effect of the antidepressants comes from the placebo effect.
Really?
I would caution everyone listening there, this isn't to say go throw out your antidepressants.
Right. No.
Not at all. But the placebo response does play a huge role in that. And you really see that when, the majority of antidepressants are the SSRIs, that inhibits the reuptake of serotonin. So there's more free serotonin in your brain. But there are other antidepressants that do the exact opposite. And they both work.
Wow.
So yeah, as I said, you want to talk to your doctor. You do not think it's something that you want to dismiss at all. But having a respect for the placebo response, which then translates to a respect for the power of your mind to influence lots of areas of your life, whatever you're trying to do. If you've got beliefs stuck away in your subconscious mind that are going to come and trip you up, you're not going to become the best version of you. And that's what training is about, becoming the best version of yourself.
That is powerful. I would say, and if you can comment, would this be placebo, sort of? But I had, when I was doing so much treatment and testing, I would get so much blood, and I was already low. It was like 6.2 one time, and they were just getting vials and vials of blood. And I was a child that didn't really care for needles because I didn't really get a lot of them growing up. I was raised in South America where alternative medicine was the best medicine, right? So I'm sitting there one time because I have this thing that I developed is I would literally, because I love the ocean, I love the ocean. So I just started, again, I was not all into the mind sciences and I didn't study all this yet, but I needed things to cope. I'm that person that would just be me. The stuff will come to me, I guess, because I welcome it. I don't know. But I would sit there and I had my hands out and I said, can you just give me a second? And then I said, go ahead. I was like, I'm off on my beach. And so when I was done, I remember my mom was in the room. She's like, how did you just sit there and let them do all this poking and prodding and da-da-da-da? I said, the whole damn time I'm at the beach sipping Mai Tais. She was like, what? I'm like, yeah, you can't close my eyes and relax. And she said, that's the thing, you're so relaxed. I was like, they do this all the time. You're just here to witness this time. She's like, does it hurt? I said, only when I forget that I'm at the beach sipping Mai Tais. Is that sort of a placebo vibe? What is?
You are totally blessed having that awareness that visualizing yourself there was the way you found your happy place, the place where your body is calm, your heart rate is calm, you're enjoying the sun, even in your mind, you're enjoying the sun. Just being out in the sun brings out happy brain chemicals. And remembering that event is going to produce those happy brain chemicals. So that's going to just help you feel more relaxed. And you slow your breathing down. That's actually more a form of self-hypnosis.
Oh, that was hypnosis. Oh, wow.
That was more like self-hypnosis, visualization, guided imagery.
Yes.
These are techniques that we use commonly. And I have exactly the same thing. My happy place is on a beach. On a beach, I've got the trees behind me. I've got the sandy beach. I've got
hardly anyone there, really.
Yes, always quiet, just a gentle breeze. And I go there just like you. If I'm feeling uptight or something, that is where I can go to calm myself down.
I found that trick, Ravinder. You're not fun, I promise. You're the last one. But everyone now in the world would know because it's a secret and it's among just close friends know. But I've never smoked in my life. I never would. I have no desire to smoke. But I found that if I take my pen and pretend I'm smoking, I take better deep breaths. And I can... You're like, you gotta be crazy. I gotta be crazy. But this is the thing. So I'm driving and traffic is horrible and I just pretend. And no one can believe you've never smoked because when and again, I don't know, maybe I smoked in another life. I've never smoked in my life. My dad was not a smoker. My mom was not a smoker. I didn't grow up with smokers. But I started doing this around 18 years old and it works. And
But your idea of smoking is that you breathe it in deeply, diaphragmatic breathing.
Yes.
You expand your diaphragm and allow it. That again produces the happy brain chemicals. It slows down the heart rate. It is very calming. You were just using the pretend cigarette as a tool to get there. I do the diaphragmatic breathing all the
I need
time.
to learn that technique. Yeah, I need to learn that. But I'm doing it, I guess. But why do I do it in traffic? So I have a special pen in my car.
There is something else that you can add to that if you want to make it even better, even more powerful.
Yes.
Is add a smile. There was
I'm smiling. I laugh at myself.
smile. Simply smiling, even a fake smile, will produce, the brain will produce endorphins.
I talk about in some of my talks the theory of smile and look up. And that when you do that, it's hard to feel as sad or angry or whatever, emotion you don't want. Yeah.
There's an entire science behind that. There were two different research papers I looked at. One looked at baseball cards. The others looked at high school pictures. And they were able to predict by the degree of smile how much longer the person would live, how much more successful they would be, their better relationships. Basically, what they showed was the people that smiled broadly with a full Duchenne smile, that's a smile that goes all the way up to your eyes when your eyes crinkle up.
Mm-hmm.
People who are smiling like that in those pictures would live on average 7 years longer. Those with a small smile would live 2 years longer.
Wow.
You can live longer, you can live healthier, you can experience more happiness, you can experience better relationships, all by smiling. And what happens, you produce those endorphins, so you're going to feel better right away. But smiling people are just more attractive. They're more welcoming. They're more open. Yeah. So I frequently, when things are getting kind of tough, I will do the diaphragmatic breathing and put a smile on my face. And I actually tested that out. There was a period when I'd been through some traumatic stuff. My brother had passed away. It was just a really ugly time. And I found my blood pressure had crept up. I always had excellent blood pressure. So then I happened to be writing the book at the time, and I came across this information about diaphragmatic breathing and the Duchenne smile. I was like, okay, I'll test this out on myself. And I've got this all in the mind training book. So I took my blood pressure, and then I took 3 diaphragmatic breaths. So just allow the diaphragm to fully expand. You take it all the way in and let it go slowly. And I put on this silly smile. Now, I was in the office on my own, so it didn't matter.
Right.
I dropped my blood pressure about 30 points in a couple of minutes.
You all heard. This is life changing. And some of you know you're in the doctor's offices not getting that blood pressure down, even while you're on meds. You better listen. Because blood pressure, I don't play about that.
Yep, and the more you can keep it down, it's not going to keep it down permanently.
No.
I tested it again, and I could then watch it start creeping up. But the more frequently you keep your body, your system in that calm, relaxed, gentle state, the better your overall health is going to be. So if you can just do this technique once or twice a day, it's going to have a rippling effect on your life.
That's it. I absolutely agree. And that's why a lot of times if I'm communicating with someone and they choose to continue to be frantic, disturbed, and angry or sad, I realize for me, the best thing to do is allow them to go through their process. And I just take off and re-energize and reboot my system and let that go with my smile, my deep breaths, and I'm just going to be me, but I can't soak up this because that's not good for me. And it's like, it's really not good for any of us. I had developed to be a sensitivity to toxicity that taking on too much of negativity and drama or any of that literally made me physically ill. I'm not sure. There's other people I've met that had suffered the same thing. So I've created a lifestyle of working and continuously doing this. I guess some people say, well, because you're an empath. I'm like, yeah, we all are. I'm an empath too. But and I know that I tap into other people's energy, so I do it well, and more I embrace that more in this chapter of my life. But at the same time, I learned how to read back because I literally I became physically sick over someone being sick or mad or sad, and I was like that my entire life. Now maybe one day I'll do hypnotherapy and I'll be able to fix a new eye or something that might have been broken a long time ago. But until then, I've developed these coping skills, like you said, that I do.
There's nothing wrong with being an empath, but you're smart enough to realize that you have to take care. You can't help other people unless you're taking care of yourself. Just like on the plane, they always say, put your oxygen on first and then take care of everybody else. Well, that's precisely what you're doing. And if you've got this happy place, you've got some inbuilt techniques of your own that work very well for you. You're not thinking about the science, but you're doing this stuff automatically. I just, in mind training, I talk about the actual science behind it all so that everyone can do it. Everyone
understand and do it and implement. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love this. It's so good. Optimism, one of my biggest things, and you talk about this. Why is optimism so powerful? And why do you suggest that we just repeat positive affirmations, even if we don't believe them at first? Because there's an argument, Ravinder, now even the self-improvement world, people going back and forth, affirmations don't work. And I'm like, they do. They do. They don't do the whole job, but they do work for what they work for. So tell us about that.
They do to a degree. Mm-hmm. The fact is, when we've got these negative beliefs, we are part of our herd mentality, evolutionary psychology, we are more sensitive to negative. We're herd animals, so we want to be accepted. If we can't be special in the group, we at least want to be normal. So when you receive that frown from somebody else, that's going to hurt you a whole lot more than them saying something nice. If you're up for a review at work and your employer tells you 10 good things about you and tells you one bad thing, you're going to hone in on that bad thing. Mm-hmm. So the power of bad is very, very real. They've actually showed that it takes 5 positives to make up for 1 negative that holds in relationships. They can actually predict the health of a relationship depending on how the couple talks to each other. So they have to be 5 times more positive than they are negative in their interactions and in what they say. And this holds in business as well. Yes. So affirmations are good. I will look in the mirror and tell myself something good. You've got this. You've got this. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Things are good, and I will smile. And, those things can help, but they don't deal with all of that negative baggage that is trapped in our subconscious minds. So for certain things, affirmations are going to work when they're more on the surface. When you've got deeper issues, then you have to go deeper than that. So you have to go and look at what kinds of beliefs, where the beliefs could have come by. And for me, we use, Eldon and I have the inner talk technology, which is a patented subliminal technology. It's been researched by numerous independent universities and institutions and been demonstrated effective at priming your self-talk. That self-talk is how you talk to yourself, and that's a reflection of the beliefs that you have. And it can be an automated way to really target that negative, the degree of negative stuff that we carry in our subconscious minds. Well, the inner talk programs can automate that and prime it, and you get enough repetition there in order to start making changes there.
Oh, wow. I love that. Oh, that's absolutely powerful. Wow. So it's time for Flip the Script. Man, this time went by so quickly. I'm in the zone with you in this. So, one of the deep questions that you tackle in mind training is about free will. Oh, free will. And many people assume that we are in full control of our choices. But you challenge this, and I'll say this: you're gonna disrupt my some of my limitations because, well, I guess I don't believe in full control, but I guess I mostly do. Can you explain why free will isn't as straightforward as we think? What it means for self-empowerment?
The argument about free will is going on globally and
more than ever in this case.
There has been a great deal of work that is done that says that everything that you do is a product of your genes, your experiences. You know, you can have twins, and one is brought up, you know, in a home where there's lots of educational opportunities, and one's brought up, you know, there, but for the grace of God, go I. You know, there's a great deal of luck that plays a role in this. Robert Sapolsky has written a brilliant book, Determined, where he goes through all of the areas where he can find a precursor that is causing your choices today. I look at all of that. We look at the biology behind it as well. But what the conclusion we come to, there was research that has been done. Benjamin Libet in the 80s used fMRI to look at choices, and he discovered there's activity in the subconscious mind. He didn't use fMRI, he used the EEG. It was John Dillon Hayes that used the fMRI later that confirmed it. It's been confirmed several times. But there's activity in your subconscious mind before you make a choice. And in these particular experiments, they could be something like, am I going to use my right hand or left hand to flick the switch? Which, you know, it's just the really simple choices. And what they found was when a technician is looking at that information, they can predict the choice you're going to make up to 7 seconds before you make the choice.
Wow.
There is a great deal in there. But the argument that we have is, okay, if the subconscious mind is making the choices and the subconscious mind is the repository of all of this information, then why don't we take charge of how the subconscious mind gets programmed? We need to pay attention to, you know, just like I said earlier with the placebo response for gastric ulcers being higher in Germany, but really low for hypertensive drugs. We're taking in information constantly that would all indicate that you don't have free will. But there are places that we can decide how to program it. The fact is, we don't have to watch the he did me wrong kinds of TV chick flicks. You know, they're really common. You know, but the more you watch that, the more you talk to your friends about, oh, our husbands are always doing this, men are that, and vice versa. Guys have their own things, you know, women nags their bub, you know. The more you buy into that stuff, you know, that is stuff that you're consuming. It goes on, even aging.
Yes.
I've got people around me that'll say, oh, we're at that age now, Ravinder, we have to slow down. Don't tell me that stuff.
Not me. I'm just getting started. Leave me alone.
I've got so much more to do. So the argument of free will does become really important from different perspectives. You look at I'm not going to go into politics, but you look at just how divided the country is right now. Well, if all of our beliefs come from the stuff that we've consumed, it comes from the research that I talk about in mind training. This kind of research is going on around the globe. And who uses that information predominantly? The advertisers, the media
Yes.
industry, the politicians. If
Speak on
they
it.
find out how to tweak you, you know, there's
Yes.
one piece where I have, if you're in a restaurant and the waitress is wearing red, she will invariably get higher tips than the other
Yes.
waitresses.
Yes.
There's all of these things that, you know, where our buttons can be tweaked, but if we learn that stuff, then we have the ability
We
to
have it.
turn it around.
Right. I would say the creative and disable weapon for ourselves.
Free will is very limited, but
Yes.
we have to take it and we have to decide, no, this is how I'm going to program my own subconscious mind so that it supports me. I'm also not
Supports
going to be
whatever.
arguing with people out there over politics because they have just been sucked down their particular rabbit holes.
Yes.
They
And that's
just
exactly.
down
And you're not going to change their thought processes and their ideals. Just leave it alone.
But I'm also not going to argue with them. I'm not going to break off relationships. Families have been torn apart.
Exactly.
Politics these last, what?
Not realizing that there was a programming that happened and you're arguing over stuff that's not even yours. I just said that on the Facebook Live. I'm like, you're believing things that you haven't, there's no research, there's no evidence. It's just mumble jumble running around, but it's true. You're telling us that this is intentionally done this way. And
Yes.
I agree.
It
And
is.
because I'm aware of that, I don't know all the things. I limit my ear time and I filter it. I have this whole process of filtering the information. And then I started, that's what I started. And I realized, you know what, if that's how I have to do all that work, why don't I just go get the research and start researching versus listening to what they're saying? Because I'll make decisions based on what my values, my views. And so whatever yours are, they're yours. But we agree on 80% of things. So I'm not going to have a fight over you over a moment. You know, I'm not going to separate my experience with you because you have a different opinion. Heck, I like red lipstick, you like purple. And we don't break up for that. You know, and that, I mean, you sound like, but that, Alisa, you're making it so small. That's lipstick. This is life. You're ultimately not responsible for that. You're not God. So stop. And no, neither are those people. So just relax, do your part, you know, keep going, keep your journey and do what you have to do and let the rest unfold. And that's why I agree with you to that extent. But free will, when you realize all the programming, free will, when I talk to people about weight loss and I start to stack the deck on all the reasons why it has become challenging. Like the only way I was able to take control of my body weight was when I learned how the deck was not stacked in my favor, that it was an automatic programming. Like, for example, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It is, but it doesn't have to be at 8 in the morning. And it's certainly not a box of cornflakes. That is not scientifically truthful, and it doesn't help anyone. So when you start to unlearn or just really test everything, you know, I say, look for the proof, look for the proof, look for the proof, and go to the right sources to get your proof. And science, you know, science doesn't lie. And then again, your instinct, I feel like we're all, that's why I love that you use the word empowerment. We're all born with, we have this. We're not, like you said, we're not broken. It's within us. No wonder. And I love to bring those examples, which are 100% my journey, that I was doing things. And over the period of my research, my study and training in the last few years, I realized, oh my goodness, you naturally gravitated. And that's the thing I want you to comment on. Is there such a thing as me with the quest to heal and nurture myself that I naturally gravitated towards things like taking those deep breaths or going off to the ocean? Was that something that came from within me, or was there something set up in my journey already in terms of, like, maybe I learned something that triggered that maybe need to? How did that work?
It possibly was something that you experienced way back and you've forgotten about it. Maybe you tried it accidentally. Maybe someone said something and you learned that behavior, and then you learn to repeat that behavior. And so you've become very aware of how to calm yourself, how to find your happy place, how to slow down your heart rate when you need to in order to bring in that calm.
I would not argue that, because what I would say, and this is why you said, think about that you were talking about the subconscious. And so this is why, I'm listening to pot. I'm a person that I don't always have it on. I love quiet too. But what I listen to, and I always talk about who has your ear time, right? Who has your ear time? And so if you surround yourself, like I'm looking towards the wall and I have these words of affirmation on my wall. I'm not overly positive, and I'm going to ask you about toxic positivity since we talked about optimism. But what I've learned is that if you're playing things in the background, you're doing some subconscious programming. So you're right. I might have the things that I attract to, like I'm very keen when I get on social media, what pops up. I will remove, because now you don't have to follow someone to get their stuff. It will just pop up because maybe it's viral. So I remove them and I ask to see less of things and more of these things. So I'm curtailing my feed as much as I can, because really they'll do what they want anyway. But my point is, I might have been programmed because maybe I read something. I'm always reading and I was researching and I'm always hungry. And it's no doubt like what you said, you think you want a Lamborghini, now you see Lamborghinis everywhere. Now you're in more awareness of it. So it's possible. And I encourage our listeners and viewers to think about that, because if you really are just, you're letting whatever happen without intentionality, then a lot of the results you're getting, if that subconscious part of you is making decisions before you make decisions, then who's in control?
Absolutely. The subconscious mind has a great deal of control over all of that.
That's crazy to think. I'm going to have to dig some more research, because you've opened up my mind to another level. So your book includes exercises at the end of every chapter to help your readers apply what they learn. Can you share some of those more impactful exercises that can help us improve our relationship, happiness, or increase some of the expectancy that some of us have in our lives?
Most of the techniques that I suggest are really very simple. They can be dismissed because they sound too simple. That is why I include so much of the science and so much of the research. So one of the great things to do is a gratitude journal. Now that can sound really simple, but when you live in a state of gratitude and positivity and optimism, there was actually a longitudinal nurses study that was done, and what they found was the most optimistic women would have a significantly reduced likelihood of dying from cancer. So 38% lower risk of dying from heart disease, 52% lower risk of dying from infection. There was research out of Johns Hopkins that looked at the relationship between positivity and heart disease. And even with a family history of heart disease, you were a third less likely to suffer from that. So, a gratitude journal sounds very new agey, self-helpy, very simplistic. But when you actually have all of the science, and what happens too is when you find things positive today in your life, so at the end of your day, if you reflect on what you're grateful for, if you've taken just a few moments of the day to find something to appreciate, to experience awe, to experience nature, to experience beauty in your family, in a baby's smile, who knows what.
Yes.
All of these things will have a cumulative effect. So down the highway, you will actually experience fewer stressful events.
Yes.
So it's not that life changes, but your interpretations, you don't get sucked in to the drama and the stress as easily. It makes you immune to more of that. So it makes you feel calmer. Barbara Fredrickson, I think at Michigan State University, calls that the upward spirals effect. And I just really like that term because I can picture that upward spirals going out into the future. So your positivity today just grows and expands and has these rippling effects in your future.
Yes.
So you can be less stressful and you can be more successful.
Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. So you all know you have to get the copy of that book. And again, simplicity in when someone does the translation and practicality for you, you say thank you. So when you get a copy of that book, you're going to have to reach out and let her know. So in Mindset Bites to go, we're going to do some practical takeaways. I have to ask, I love that your book discusses subliminal self-help programs, an area that many people misunderstand. Some studies claim that they don't work. Why do you believe otherwise?
I cover that thoroughly in Mind Training. It's got this great history. We were talking about the research that goes on around the world and how they learned how to influence opinions. So, for example, as I said, the story is long and it is complex. It starts with the experiment that was done at a New Jersey theater where they had the drink Coca-Cola, eat popcorn. And they talk there. Here's a prime example. See, if you go and do a search for does subliminal work, and if you go to Snopes, they will say subliminal communication does not work and that this research was debunked, and they tried to do a replication of the research. Okay. And they say that in Snopes, that's a place that we trust for fact checking. Okay. But the particular replication they're talking about, it was the president of the Psychological Association. He actually died 5 years before this research.
Oh,
It's just been repeated so many times.
Yeah.
Or there were other replications that were done. You think about it. You have the subliminal affirmation for drink Coca-Cola, eat popcorn when you're going to the theater with your family. You're expecting to relax. You're expecting to enjoy yourself. We normally get concessions when we go to the theater. That's part of the experience.
Yes.
And then they did a replication where it was a documentary on a warship or something. It was done in the workplace. Everyone was told beforehand that there were subliminal affirmations in there. You're not relaxed. You're not thinking about being entertained. Instead, you are hyper alert to when am I going to feel this urge? Subliminal communication doesn't force you to do something differently. It nudges your emotions in that direction. So even in the New Jersey theater, it wasn't that everybody in the audience went out and got Coca-Cola and popcorn. They just had an increase, like a 10% increase in sales. They're not saying that everybody got it originally, but imagine if you've gone to the theater, you're with your friends and family, but you're on a diet. So you tell yourself beforehand, I'm not going to have the popcorn and I'll just get a water, or I'll get a cup of tea, something that doesn't have calories. But then you're subjected to these subliminal messages, and you normally get Coke and popcorn, and Coke and popcorn sounds good, and now you just got this additional stimulation. It's not going to catch everybody. It's just going to nudge the masses in those directions.
Right.
So there is a great deal to the story. A great deal of manipulation has gone on, because who is it that who wants to use the subliminal information without you knowing? Advertisers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
I
studied it so many years in high school when I studied business in high school, and I was learning about product placement. And I'm always so intrigued by seeing, an Apple product. And I'm like, she's using an Apple product. And I'm like, And I started to tell my mom she has an Apple computer. And I said, go look at another computer. They would never show you, if that person did not place their ad in that movie, you would never see the brand of the computer anyone's using. And you better believe I'm like, you're absolutely right. Even though they're using an Apple computer, we who might have Apple computers know that's an Apple, but the logo was not placed. So the subliminal program, it just so happened that you might see someone flip their laptop and it places on the thing, and then you see another one in another room walking with their computer like this randomly. That's called product placing. So subliminally, your program that these people who are having this whatever experience in this movie that you're enjoying and you love, they use Apple products. So then you're like, I want a Mac. And you don't understand why you're thinking, oh, I hate this computer. I don't like my Microsoft Surface Pro. I think I should try an Apple. But you try an Apple? No, it's a newer program, honey. And that is the part where she talks about, that's where Ravinder said that you already had a program in before you even went to the store and bought that Apple computer. Because you were programmed along the line for 2 hours with it. Did you see Will Smith did a movie, Ravinder? I bet you know what I'm talking about too. It was where he was doing a bet, and they did subliminal programming in on the field so that the bettors can bet on what the way he wanted them to go. I can't remember. I think it was called Hitched with Will Smith and I think Eva Mendes. You have to watch it.
I will go check it out. I will go check it out. I like Will Smith movies. You know, they tend to be good.
That one was one of the mind ones that I mean, that's an old one too, but it was showing that science and subliminal programming and how it works. And the thing I love sometimes about some movies, especially for some actors like Will Smith, he's very intentional because he's been into the sciences, he's been learning things. And so I think he was even an executive producer on that film. And I don't know if people caught that, but for me, that was exposure to, if you didn't learn it like I did in school and things like that, and you were exposed to subliminal programming that way, and realizing that your decisions can completely misguide the masses and billions of dollars just by programming subliminally.
But there has been a great deal of research done since then. You know, the history of subliminal communication in media and advertising, that goes back to the 50s. But there has been a great deal of research. It is very well established now. Even those people who spoke up so adamantly that subliminal doesn't work, they've now come around and said, yes, it does. It has its effects, you know. But I cover the whole story in mind training, and it's really important because you get to see all of these other things that come into play. You know, how you were manipulated to believe that it didn't work in the first place.
Exactly.
Why people have an invested interest in trying to say that it doesn't work. There has been evidence for a long time, but today there isn't any question about it.
There isn't, because now there are lawsuits for social media. I think Facebook has lost class action suits and are different social media. I know there are some class action suits for young youth that might have been addicted to social media and games. There's all kinds of, because they felt like they were programmed and yeah, their subconscious.
That's a whole other subject.
That's another episode.
Social media and young people, yeah, there are lots of dangers in that.
Yes, so I feel like a lot of it has to do with subliminal programming as well. So let's talk about something a little bit deeper, spirituality. Do you believe there's a place for spirituality practices in the science-based self-help program?
I do. That is
I do too. I don't think it goes without. Yeah.
You know, when you have this discussion about free will, and you know, I come to the conclusion that free will isn't free. You need to take it. But what happens is when you claim it for yourself, when you start making changes in your life, then you become somebody else's experience. You become part, you know, they witness the changes in you. That becomes part of their experience. So maybe they will then try some of these techniques, whereas they weren't before. So to me, there is a great spiritual element in that part of it. And then you've also got enjoying nature, experiencing awe. Just experiencing awe. If you're going out for a walk, just take a second to see the clouds and say, wow. Just experiencing that. That again has spiritual relationships in there. I talk about hypnosis and meditation. Meditation doesn't have to be spiritual, but adding spirituality to it can make it even more powerful.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I do. I can find the spiritual. Look at the placebo effect. The fact that your mind has the ability to heal you.
Yes.
Thanks God. That is.
Where did that come from? We didn't create it, so somebody created it. Yeah, and we would create so intricately. If someone thought about this, like, there's no way. Absolutely. So our last thing from you before you tell our guest how to connect with you, how to get copies of Mind Training, is Mindset Advice to Go. We'll give you about 90 seconds to 2 minutes to share with the listeners and viewers on your own, by yourself. I'm off camera and off mic, so you can speak into them as if it were your last time that you get to tell someone about how Mind Training really empower them. I'm going to step over the microphone, Ravinder, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The book is Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment. Fact is, life has programmed you, but you can do it better. I outline all the techniques for that. You can buy the book anywhere books are sold. Amazon, your bookstore. If they don't have it in stock, they can order it in. You can also learn more about me by going to my website. That is ravindertaylor.com. And you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. I do like to share inspirational messages on Facebook, along with some of the science and some of the science clips. Being aware of the power of your own mind and taking charge of it is the best thing that you can do in order to become the best version of yourself possible. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me.
Thank you so much, Ravinder. It's been such an honor. I would love to have you back again for another episode. Maybe Mr. Taylor will come along with you, or Eldon rather, because I know you've already given me the warning already, right? You're such giving and sharing all your wisdom, your research, your insights is truth and transformation. To our listeners and our viewers, I want to let you know that all the information to get in touch with Ravinder is in the description where you are watching or listening to this episode. I would encourage you to share this episode, and the link to Mind Training. I'm going to have both an e-copy and a hand copy, because this is why I live, and she's definitely a resource that we need in the world in an era like this. So as always, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and connect with Ravinder as well. Until next time, we encourage you to keep mastering your mindset and train your mind in the direction that you want to go. Ravinder, thank you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye now.